Hey, welcome to episode 119 of the Live Your Focused Life podcast. I'm Amanda Catherine Loy, and today I have my husband, Kevan, on with me again for episode 2 of the Polyamory series that we are doing and has been so wildly requested. If you missed last week's episode, it was all around jealousy. I will link it in the show notes for you. Highly recommend you go back and listen to not only that episode, but also the episode 105, where we dig into all of the things around our polyamory journey and why we got into this and what it's been like for the last almost 3 years, I guess, at this point right now.
Coming up on
Yeah.
it, I suppose.
Yeah. We decided to do this series on the Live Your Focused Life podcast. If you're new to here, we don't just talk about poly normally on the podcast. It's a space to talk about shit that nobody really talks about in life. And I share about all sorts of things on this podcast and have really amazing guests and interviews, but also talk about my own journey with the BRCA gene and my preventative double mastectomy. I talk about body confidence and my eating disorder recovery, as well as my journey into queerness and polyamory and so many other topics. Because they're just not talked about ever. And a big part of why I wanted to do this polyamory series is, one, because all of you were asking for it and asking a lot of really amazing questions that we just couldn't possibly put in a 30 or 60-second TikTok or Instagram stories. And two, because I think our perspectives, while aligned in a lot of ways, are also very unique in their own rights. And there are so few cis males in the space who are actively talking about their experiences with poly. And I've had a lot of people say that they would love to hear more about that. So I thought it'd be really cool to have you on the podcast and do this series. So excited you're back.
I didn't realize that was a rarity.
You are a rarity. Actually, you are a deep rarity. I was, there was a TikTok that I did now that you're listening to this, a few days ago. And it was all about, are there any good men? Like I stitched it. And it was like, somebody was like, are there any good men left in this world? Please tell me if you have like a good man in your life, like what he's like, because I don't believe they exist. And I was like, yeah, they do, So I think you are a rarity. So anyways, welcome.
This TikTok. I'll have to watch
I'll have to
it.
show it to you. Welcome back to the pod. Today we are talking about all things perception. We've gotten a lot of questions around how we navigated the shift from monogamy to polyamory from a perception standpoint. Our dog Toby is being very loving right now.
Where by loving you mean needy?
Needy as fuck. Is there a difference?
Perception.
We just got really blurry on video. Okay. And also specifically around perception, how coming out to our friends and family went, what that process has been like for us, and all sorts of stuff. So,
wait, can you define the first perception again, or is it like
we're just going to deep dive into it?
Okay.
So, perception, generally speaking, I think is a really interesting topic. It's something I actually deep dive a lot in my group and one-on-one work, because I think so often we hold ourselves back from being who we really are, because we are so scared of being perceived in a way that might lead us to not be seen, accepted, or loved. At the end of the day, you'll hear me say this a million times, I think as humans, we just want to be seen, accepted, and loved at the end of the day. And perception and how other people view us is such a big thing. It's why you see so many people, pretending on Instagram to be one thing, when in reality, behind closed doors, they have a very different life and are not actually as happy or as positive as they make you out to be. I lived in that space a lot back in the day. I did not share my true self, not just publicly, but also privately. I didn't want to be perceived a certain way, so I presented myself in certain lights. And I think it also goes to hiding who we really are a lot of the time, because we're scared that if we show ourselves, I think it's why I've had so many conversations with so many people who have come out of the closet, in their late 20s and 30s, because they've been scared of how, their community might perceive them, their family, their friends. And that was a really big deal for me when it came to poly. And I came at it as bisexual and poly at the same time. And I'm curious, has that been a part of your experience in terms of coming out as poly?
I think less so. Like I think maybe I was there are a handful of people that I was like really concerned about. Not because I thought they would have bad reactions per se, but more that I just wasn't sure how they would respond.
Yeah.
Like my two best friends, like I knew they would be supportive of like whatever shenanigans I wanted to get into. Like I went through college with them, so like
Yeah.
you know, shit
You
got a
go
little
through some shit.
hairy
Yeah.
you know, from time to time. My parents and like, you know, what is the proper term? Family of origin? Is that the thing?
I don't know.
Um, like I wasn't really worried about that at all. Like they were either, you know, gonna say cool or like, hey, don't do that. And either one didn't really impact me. My mom was actually like really chill.
What can we go back a second? Why
Yeah.
was that not something you were worried about? Because of just who they are as people, or because you don't have a strong relationship with them? Like,
Are those mutually exclusive?
no, that's why I'm asking.
No, I mean, I'm not, you know, my family's opinions are different than mine on lots of things.
Yeah.
And I don't, you know, I'm my own goddamn person who, you know, I moved out at like 16 and change. So, you know, for, you know, reasons like, and, you know, just is what it is. Like, so their opinion to me was like, it was important in that, like, I hope they, you know, accepted me. I think like, all people do with their or all children do with their parents, but at the end of the day it was inconsequential whether they actually did or not.
Yeah.
So
I think that's an interesting. I asked that question because I think it's an interesting thing on perception, because I think there are some people. I'm curious for all of you listening. You know, let us know if you're in the Patreon page or, you know, wherever you listen to us, and reach out, because I feel like there's like both camps, and maybe it's an and situation, but it's like either you're really nervous about the perception of the people that you're closest to because you have deep bonds with those people and you're worried that they might not accept you or abandon you because of who you are, or, you know, how you present yourself, and maybe it's against their values or against their morals or whatever. So I think there's one camp of people who are really focused on that space. Then there's the, you know, the perception of like to strangers, like, how will I be perceived on the whole, you know, when it's not necessarily to do with anybody that you have an attachment to or an invested relationship with, but there's still that I want to be perceived a certain way and in a certain light. And, you know, I know that if I pick this maybe less traditional path, I might be seen as X or Y. And then I think maybe there's, you know, the middle where maybe those both exist or whatever.
yeah.
But I find that often there's, you know, it's interesting to see where the two camps lie. And I think I was personally less concerned about the, you know, the perception of the people closest to me, mostly because I think I have really strong relationships with my people. And I knew that even if they didn't understand, which many don't, that they would be supportive in their own way. But the public persona and perception has been something I've really struggled with in the context of poly. And it's why it took me so long to come out
Or that you mean like
publicly.
strangers?
Strangers, you know, my audience, you know, like, I mean, I've been growing up a business for what, 5.5 years now. And how, you know, how will everyone react? You know, I was really nervous to come out as bi, because, you know, I'd never talked about my queerness before. I was really, really nervous to come out as poly because I know there's so much misinformation around what it is to be polyamorous. And, you know, it's like, well, are people going to just assume that we have a terrible marriage and that we're unhappy and that's why we're stepping into poly? Because a lot of people do that. Like a lot of
Don't
people,
do that.
yeah, don't do that. PSA.
No, I mean, I think I get that. Like I wouldn't, like, I'm not public. I mean, I'm on this fucking podcast, but like,
Yeah.
and I guess your TikTok, but I'm not like really, I don't broadcast it, you know, in
Yeah.
any way.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's any more important for people to know that about me than that my favorite color is gray and that I have a gray hoodie. And I used to have a really awesome gray car that all matched with my gray mask. It's true. It's totally true. But I just, you know, I never like, it hasn't been important to me
Yeah.
in that way to speak about it or anything.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed of it or anything, but
Yeah.
I just like, it's, it was never something that occurred to me. However, I do worry, like if I start talking with someone like at work or not that people go to conferences or things like that anymore, but I do like my interaction with you might say less woke people.
Yeah.
That's been a place where I've been worried about it. Like especially like I maybe I shouldn't say it like this, but the proper phrasing escapes me. Like dudes are kind of dicks a lot of the time. And
Yeah.
if I were to say to someone randomly, like, yeah, I have another partner and my wife has another partner, like I think that could very easily open up a lot of shitty comments.
Totally.
Either it may, and I think less the shitty marriage thing,
Yeah.
but more like direct
it tends to be very sexual innuendos.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, you're getting some, like.
Well, I've definitely gotten that, but I've also gotten the opposite of like, oh, which one of you is the slut? Like implying that like we've had an affair or something else, or that's just simply what this is. And so I think for me, like that probably helps keep the tape on my mouth, as it were. It's just like, I don't think I gain anything by being particularly open about it.
Yeah.
And I also don't feel like I lose anything by not.
Yeah.
And so it's more just like, I don't want to deal with the headache of it.
Totally. So in juxtaposition to like, obviously you're personally choosing to keep it private with, people you're not
except
super
for
close
being on
to.
this fucking podcast
right,
and
right.
TikTok and the, all the other shit. Yeah.
But a lot of those people, won't see that. I mean, we'll see. Maybe they will one day.
It's blowing up.
But
sound like hotcakes. I got t-shirts.
Yeah, we should. That'd be fun.
This is my hair. Just the
just the swoopy. We both have the swoopy hair. It goes the same way. It's so funny. Yeah.
Sidebar for life.
But what, the people that you did come out to, your friends and family, which, we came out pretty quickly, I would say. Yeah. Within like a few months.
In the dabble phase, I would say.
Yeah. Well,
friends.
Yeah, that's true. Friends we told very, very quickly. And our family we told within the first few months.
Like 6 months or so. Right?
No, less. It was less than that. It was like
Thanksgiving.
And we had talked about, stepping into some kind of ethical non-monogamy for a while before we actually did.
Like maybe on our close to our first date. Like talk about a threesome anyway.
Totally. And then we actively started talking about it in like 2016. And then we didn't actually meet our first partner that we had a triad with until 2018. And that was like midway through the year, I want to say, we met her. And we didn't tell, we told, once we knew that it was something that was important, a relationship that was important to us and potentially had the possibility of being significant in terms of longevity or, whatever you want to really qualify it as. And also because I was gearing up for my surgery. For those of you who are new to the podcast, I had a preventative double mastectomy December of 2018 because I have the BRCA1 gene. I wrote a whole book about it. It's called I Chopped Off My Tits. You can check it out in the show notes or just go to amandacatherine.com/book. But our partner at the time that we were in a triad. So we both had a partnership with her and also the three of us were in a partnership, wanted to be there for me for my surgery. And my mom was also coming into town. So that kind of, sped up the process, I think, of maybe telling them, but I think we were also feeling like it was time for that as well. So I guess
car ride.
Yeah. So I guess my question for you though, is like, if that is your experience or your feeling around, the people who don't necessarily know you and aren't super close, like how did it actually go in reality with your close friends and family? Like, did you get any of those comments or were people pretty understanding or supportive?
No, I mean, my friend base was mostly like, hey man, I don't fucking get it. I couldn't do that, but if it floats your boat and, do it, I think, the only word of caution I got was from my best friend. And it was basically like, look, you and Amanda do whatever you want. I just hope that you two are okay. In the midst of it.
That was a big question we got. Like, are you guys okay? Are you guys okay?
Oh, it was, I think what you mean is like, are we okay and not okay, and that's why we're doing this.
Right.
I think my best friend's thing was like, hey, you guys are great now, don't fuck it up by dabbling in something new.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, a lot of people are scared about change.
Yeah.
And protective around that.
Yeah. Hi. But yeah, so that went well. And you know, I thought my mom would really freak out.
Yeah, your mom
Like,
was
she's
the most
very religious.
nonchalant.
Like, I stuttered and stammered, not because it went poorly, but because it went so good, and I had been so prepared for it to be so terrible.
And it was so nonchalant. We were just like in the car with her, and you're like, Mom, I got to tell you something.
Yeah.
She's like, what? And she's like, okay. I was like,
yeah, it was,
that's it.
Like, literally, it's like, okay, cool. Yeah. So
your dad's reaction was the most unexpected one, because maybe I should have been more prepared for the fact that he, you know, people don't necessarily know the terms. And this has been a big consistent thing on, you know, TikTok, where a lot of people hear polyamory and assume polygamy, because that is,
they had just finished watching Big Love or something like that.
I mean, well, it's super, you know, in the media, like that's what you experience. And just want to say for the record, very, very fucking different. No, hard no. Not
Mormons.
No, also not in a religious practice, not not in that space at all. This is all just about relationship dynamics that feel aligned, and for each individual, it's not that intense by any means. But it's just it's not that. And no matter how many times we corrected terminology, that was the word that was used a lot in that conversation. I was like, nope. Now it's happening here.
I think we tried about a half dozen times.
At a certain point, I was like, okay, you're going to just say what you're going to say.
So be prepared for that, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was mostly your experience. My experience, I would say, was different all across the board. You know, my friends were super supportive, and actually coming out to my friends helped me in terms of my own personal bias around polyamory, because I definitely, even though practicing, had it too. And I think that's something that's really interesting. You know, like we have personal biases or even perceptions and fears that even though we feel aligned for something and with something at our core, we still, navigate that. And I think that's something that's really important to put out. And I was really struggling with perception big time. I would say like the first year of our relationship. Like I remember being out with the woman that I was mentioning earlier, who we were in a triad with. And, you know, we would walk down the street and it was like, I didn't want to all hold hands because I didn't want to be perceived in a way that felt misunderstood. I don't like being misunderstood. And I know that there's so many misunderstandings around what polyamory is, or what our relationship dynamic might be, or why. And I didn't want just a random stranger to have these perceptions of me, because it was such a big deal for me. It's such a big fear for me. And when I came out to my friends, you know, so many of them were like, oh yeah, I know lots of poly people. Like, you know, kind of makes sense given that, you know, like you're bi, and given that that's something that, you know, like, I know you've never really talked about like stepping into that space, but like you're super sex positive, and you're super like, you and Kev are like two of the most growth oriented, like solid humans I know. So if there's a couple that can do this in a way that's going to be aligned, like cool, like, you know. And I think not just hearing that they had belief in us as individuals and as a couple, but also that they actually knew poly people. Like I just didn't know anybody, like actually know anybody. I knew some people who had open relationships, but that always blew up. Like I always witnessed that blow up and be this really like harmful space. And obviously like I'd seen a lot of, you know, not like very unethical, you know, cheating and affairs and stuff. But I never had actually connected with somebody who did E&M or polyamory in a aligned and really authentic way. And so there was just no roadmap for us, or for, for me to have anyone to talk to really that I knew and trusted. And so even just hearing that people had friends in that space was like, oh my gosh, that's cool. My parents, on the other hand, uh, that's probably been, I think, the most challenging, piece for me. So mom and dad, if you're listening, hi, love you. And the thing is I think it's been most challenging because they are so important to us, and I think at the end of the day, they've been very supportive in the way that they've known how to be, but they don't understand. And I think they've had a lot of fear around the perception piece, and a lot of fear your eyeballs right now, and a lot of fear around why we're doing this, a lot of confusion around that. And so navigating that has been challenging. And I think it's also been a beautiful lesson around boundaries for us.
Yeah.
And it definitely impacted our relationship individually with them for a chunk, but I feel like we're in a good spot right now. And I feel really, really proud of the work that we've all done to, get there. So yeah.
Can I take a step back and contrast something you said?
Yeah, for sure.
So you were talking about, the first year you felt funky. I don't remember what the word you used was about being poly. I think it's really interesting. You felt it then, and I feel it now. Like for me, like walking down the street, holding hands with two different people, like that was totally fine.
Yeah.
Like I'm in like a really amazing other relationship with somebody I really care about and love, but I feel that funkiness about poly now, which is weird. I think a lot of that probably like gets tripped up in like things I felt from like growing up, where there was experiences actually as a child or as a younger adult with cheating, or even like religious upbringing of having like one person you're supposed to be with, and for whatever reason, like when it was something we were doing together, like my perception of that was like fucking A, totally cool, no big deal.
Yeah.
And it's weird now to have been doing it, as you said, for almost 3 years now. And now is when stuff gets kicked up, maybe because it like shit feels real. Like I don't know,
I mean,
but it's an interesting contrast
totally.
to you practicing poly at the beginning and having funkiness about it, and me having none at the beginning, but now 3 years in, this like totally opposite set of feelings or perception on it.
Well, I think ultimately that speaks to, our big fears, and also like where we're at individually and our needs meet, because I think for me, my fears and the reason my perception was, or I was struggling with the perception of things was a bunch of reasons. Primarily, I was still not comfortable in my queerness. And so I was even just struggling with the perception of like being intimate in public with a woman. I was so excited by it, but I was also like, like an awkward turtle. Like, I don't know what to do. And like, are people going to look weird at me? Did you like my awkward turtle?
Yeah, I was really trying to figure that out. Was that a thing, or is that just
oh my God, you've never seen awkward turtle or awkward palm tree? Oh, come on. This is a thing. Okay, please tell me that you all know what I'm talking about. Kevan is not the only one who, you clearly don't have the coolness. This is cool middle school Amanda, who is very not cool, but that's okay. That's what I did in my spare time. But anyways, that was a big thing,
imagining you in your room awkward turtling around. What was the hand motion? I don't know what it is.
It's like you put it on top. Anyways, we're getting so off topic. So yeah, my queerness was a big part of that. I think also I was so and am protective, frankly, of our relationship and of what people think about us and say about us. I think that's become less of a thing for me now, but I think stepping into poly, and especially because we were going from, our relationship looked the same on paper and outwardly to everybody in the world for 7.5 years, right? And that changing, I knew that there were these perceptions because I was hearing them. I was hearing people say like, oh, especially to you specifically, like, oh, like you're living the dream, like you're getting some,
Oh, yeah.
and it was
That
like,
was a
why is it
common
always
thread.
focused on the fucking guy, like in the context of a triad with 2 women and 1 man. Like it really got under my skin.
Yeah, I didn't want any part of that. I totally got drug into it, and
Yeah.
I was
Shut up. I thought you meant the comments you didn't
No.
want any part of. But or also that just like the perception that like we're just having sex all the time and that's like the only reason for like stepping into that space. And I was at that time still pretty I would say if we're talking about being sexually liberated, I was not liberated at that point, like at all. I was stepping into my sexuality in a different way, which was exciting, but I was so self-conscious, and so even the word slut like would be this huge trigger word, whereas now I'm like, yeah, fucking yeah, like everyone's a slut. Like I hope you're a slut. I hope that, and like let's reclaim that word. Let's take back the word and not use it as a slur, and just refer to somebody who's sex positive and who actually believes that in using their body in a way that feels aligned for them, no matter what that looks like. Like there's this perception that in poly, like it's just all like a gangbang all the time, and it's like, if you mean Google Calendar sharing is a gangbang, then yes, like, like I don't know what else to say. And for some people, sure, like maybe that's part of their experience. I hope it's part of ours, in the future. I would love to do that. But like, I don't know. I just think that was really challenging for me because I was so, I struggled with feeling sexually liberated. And I also wanted people to know that we were in a great spot, and for whatever reason, like I cared so much about that because at the end of the day, I wasn't comfortable with myself in the space or just in general. So I think really flexing the confidence muscle and actually applying the things that I teach, as a confidence coach and an embodiment coach, and just really like coming home to myself has been huge. Which, speaking of, since we are talking about that, we'll take a little break and let you know that I am officially opening doors. Well, doors are officially open for my signature group program, the School of Fears, Fills, and Fucks. This is the first round that we're kicking off. And it is literally encompassing all of the things that I teach in a one-on-one or group setting and putting it into a 3-month, 12-week, amazing course and program. And I'm really excited about it. A lot of you have asked, like, how can I work with you on a bigger capacity? This is the way to do it. What?
I was thinking swipe right.
Get on Tinder. No. But also, yeah. But no, how can I work on you in a bigger capacity? This is the way to do it. And there are 3 different tiers depending on your budget and your needs. So if you're looking to join a group program and a community that's going to really, really heighten you and just allow you to step into your fuck yes self, whether that's with your relationships, your job, your purpose, your health, the way that you see your body, your sexuality, and beyond, this is the place to do it. Check it out at AmandaCatherineLoy.com, or you can head to the show notes and check it out there. So yeah, perception. Let's get back to it. Those are like basically the big ones in terms of what people thought and how we were navigating it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess let's pivot now into how we navigated that intentionally, like how we overcame fear of perception, or what worked for us when it came to feeling comfortable in this space, really. I mean, comfortable enough to talk about it and talk about it openly. Yeah. You want to start? You want me to?
No, you go ahead. I'm trying to remember where this quote comes from.
You have a quote in your head?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, like I was saying before, perception and why we are so why we are so aware of how people perceive us and why we operate in a way to be perceived in a certain way is because we are still not in a place with ourselves, no matter what that is, whether that's how we do relationships, our sexuality, or even just our jobs, what is important to us, where we choose to spend our time. We are not comfortable with ourselves. We don't feel, we don't echo that and live that out and see it on paper and be like, yeah, that's amazing. I want to support that. Because at the end of the day, I was watching a TikTok. I was watching a TikTok and
that's 90% of entertainment in the house.
This
is all TikTok.
Lately, it's been true.
We got rid of all our subscriptions to internet shit, and it's just TikTok.
No, but this woman was talking about, and she's like, I love it, and I think it's amazing that there are so many career-driven women out there, women who want to do these incredible things and make an impact and have these like huge jobs. And I'm not putting any of those women down, but why is it that my dream of wanting to just be a mom and a wife and have a big house and a dog and, a swing set in the backyard and just spend my day doing laundry and cleaning, why is that looked down upon now? Like, why is that not, something that is okay for me to feel? And I was watching her speak to a dream that is so foreign to my own, so against everything that I love. And that dream, that life feels claustrophobic and like I would be living in a prison, like truly, like it's like everything I don't want in my life other than the dog.
I want a swing set and slide.
That sounds amazing. But like, impact and freedom and travel and flexibility and, all sorts of things. Those are my core values. And that just goes so against it. And because we are in an upswing of, all of those things that I just expressed, and there are more humans like me that are really, really showcasing online now and sharing their thoughts and their dreams and their beliefs. The other side of the coin is that other people who have differing perspectives and beliefs are now feeling like it's not okay to be them. They're not feeling seen. They're not feeling accepted. And I think at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning, we are all just wanting to feel seen and accepted and loved for who we are. And so when something that's important to us, like being polyamorous, is expressed and we are not seen and met, even if we're not understood, if we're just accepted, right? We don't need to be understood. We can be just accepted by the other person, right? Then the narrative starts playing in our brains. And the narrative can often sound like, oh, well, you're weird, or that's too much, or you're not, going to be able to meet friends or build a community because people are going to think that you're too off, or people are going to look at you and think you're weak, or whatever the fuck your narrative is, right? And we start to believe those things, right? Because we're so focused on the other. And we don't have our inner dialogue that is louder, right? My inner dialogue is so loud that sometimes I have to be conscious about tuning other people in. Like that's genuinely where I'm at my own journey for self-love and self-awareness, right? It's like, I'm so sure of who I am and what my message is and what I'm supposed to do and what my core values are, that sometimes I have to actively take a step back to listen to other people, and my wish is that you get to that point too, that you are so sure of everything that you are and do, and it takes a lot of practice, frankly. And it takes a lot of reframing the narratives that you're hearing. And it takes a lot of accountability in that space. So if you're looking for that, you can always join the School of Fear, Feels, and Fucks.
Always a plug there.
Always a plug, yeah.
No, so that's interesting. I think to use your parlance, I resonate with some of that.
I love you.
But I don't know, whatever it is, a struggle or acceptance or perception or whatever. At the end of the day, maybe this is going to fly in the face of some of your stuff, but we're different people.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody fucking cares. Like literally nobody fucking cares. You're the only person that cares about you, right? Like, I mean, people might say, I think like the shitty comments or whatever,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, that's like this fleeting moment. And the
Yeah.
only thing that really matters is how you feel about you and the decisions you're making. Like, that's it. You know,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, that's the only thing that's really there.
Yeah.
And so if you feel good with it, I hadn't planned for this to lead into my next point, but it's going to, and I'm really excited about it. But if you feel good about it, like at your core, then that's the thing that matters, right? And sometimes this is my second idea. I actually Googled it. I did remember the quote correctly. So, but if you feel good about it, even if there's like some funky territory to tread through, you know,
Yeah.
some you know, stones on fire or whatever that you're walking across, the cure for that pain is in the pain. It's Rumi. And that can mean a whole bunch of different things. But the way that I'm applying that in my head at the moment is that even if this situation has been tricky, by this I mean polyamory, even if I've had some shitty feelings about it, or things that have been really concerning to me, or whether that's perception or events or whatever, one thing I've like navigated through enough to know is like that's important to me, like that having, you know, a different vantage point on relationships and connecting with people and supporting people that I, you know, love and care about in their own adventures. Like, even if that's tricky or painful, like the nugget of joy is still in there. And sometimes I got to wade through some of that hurt or pain or whatever and find it. Or alternatively, that special thing is actually deep down in there. And to shed myself of all the shitty feelings and pain and things, like I really got to go dig deep and find that. And when I find that, it makes all of the other bullshit that it took to get there like totally worth it. It's like the 57 hours of walking in the Lord of the Rings. Like at the end of it, something happens. I don't know what, but it seemed worth it. You know, and
so much happens. So don't say just something happens.
I don't know.
So much happens.
But my point is still the same, that like that it's that journey to it and through it, you know, that really makes it.
Yeah.
And when you layer that with like nobody actually fucking cares, like
and I think that point is actually a really beautiful one that we often forget, right? Like we obviously think about ourselves more than anyone else because we are at the center of our own story. We are hopefully the main character in our own lives. And we forget that other people are their own characters, right? And a lot of the time we think we are being seen or observed in a certain way, when really they're not paying attention at all, right?
Will you put this in the show notes if I talk about something real quick?
Yeah.
So you got to go watch Daniel Sloss's second episode on Netflix,
the comedy special thing that we watched. Yeah,
it's so good. He talks about everybody being their own jigsaw, and like relationships are trying to get other people their pieces to like fit into your jigsaw, and you wonder so many times why it doesn't work. And it's because you forget that everybody is their own fucking jigsaw puzzle, and they're not necessarily meant to fit directly into yours.
Yeah,
you're supposed to have your own jigsaw puzzle, and sometimes they look real fucking nice sitting next to each other.
Yeah,
but not ramrodded into each other like some sort of like fucking Mickey Mouse threw up shit.
That's what we talked about last episode about how, you know, this whole concept, it just reminded me of like how so many people are like, I want to find my other half and your puzzle piece will fit in mine, you know, which is something I've just never understood, that concept, you know, because we're all whole people, you know. So I love that you're a giant jigsaw puzzle, and hopefully, you know, they match up. Well, and sometimes they look real weird, but also weird's not bad, you know, so it just kind of depends.
Impressionism, that shit's weird.
I love impressionism. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, you know, we also need to remember that our perceptions also change over time. And as we learn and as we open our minds to learning, like my perception of polyamory before we entered it and even as we were in it was pretty negative in a lot of ways.
I did not know that.
I had a lot of shame wrapped up in that. And it's taken a lot of self-work and a lot of honestly owning that this is really a part of who I am and how I've kind of always philosophically believed. I never, practiced it necessarily, but it's been such a deep rooted part of the way that I believe in love and believe in relationships and the way we should treat the people in our lives. And it's been honestly it's been a practice of coming home to myself, and as I've done that, my perception around it as a whole has shifted.
Would you say the cure for your pain was in the
Was
pain?
in the pain. Yes, it was in the pain, Kevan. And I think that that's also important to remember with others, right? Somebody might be perceiving you in a certain way, whether that's a stranger on the internet or a friend or a family or even a partner who, a lot of you have been reaching out and been like, I'm poly, but my partner isn't, and I don't know how to have this conversation with them. And I'm sure there's a big fear around how are they going to perceive me in this, right? And at the end of the day, remember that perception is rooted in knowing, right? And everyone's knowing is different. And if we can support the humans in our lives, if they're people we actually want to support, or just let the people who don't have that knowing and that understanding do their own thing, right? And just live at arm's length in a comment section, that's all we can do. And our perception of ourselves is the only thing we truly have control over. So when we can hone that and really work on, accepting that, then I think that's the path.
But is that what somebody's worried about? Like when they talk about that, like whoever reached out to you or commented to you about the being poly, but their partner's not. Like, I suspect that the fear there isn't so much the perception, but like that if they voice this feeling to, or this desire to their existing monogamous partner, that the whole thing fucking implodes.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fears around that, but perception plays a role for sure.
I'm not saying that it doesn't play a role, but I guess what I'm wagering is maybe the topic for another episode.
100%.
But I think that's very material. Is like it's like
what happens when your desires and needs are incompatible, or struggling, or seemingly at odds. Yeah, and can you find compatibility there? A topic for another day.
I think I did this last episode.
Yeah, you did. So, anyways, I think that's all that I have to say on perception and E&M. Any thoughts on any final thoughts, remaining thoughts?
No, but one I'll reiterate, nobody fucking cares. Seriously, breathe that in for a minute. Nobody fucking cares. If you don't feel it, say it a couple of times, because it will really lighten the load of any of the things that, like, maybe not your close friends or family or whatever.
Some people do care.
But I'm talking about the bullshit from people. Like you were talking about people on the internet, and or even ancillary people or just random people you meet. Nobody really fucking cares. Like you're the one that cares. And not to say that you shouldn't have feelings about that or have like stuff to process or like whatever, but if you feel good about it, that's the thing that matters. Fuck everybody else.
And I think that's the big lesson here, is ultimately this is about you and your happiness and your path to your fuck yes self. So make sure that you're continuing to hone that. And if you liked today's episode, let us know. Reach out on Instagram or TikTok, or if you are feeling extra good, leave a review, rating, and all of that good stuff over at iTunes. All of this stuff at the show notes are at AmandaCatherineLoy.com/podcast/119, as well as all the information for School of Fierce Fills and Fucks if you are wanting in on that. There are 3 different tiers, different payment plans, and all that good stuff. So yeah, and until next week, we'll see you on the flip side. Bye-bye.
Were you supposed to say the same word?